What is going on, everybody? It is your boy, your man's Toxic Camel 331. Back at it with another video, and today we're doing yet another toxic tier list ranking. Oh yeah, but before we get to the actual beginning of the video itself, guys, if you're curious what tier list ranking we're doing, we are doing a WWE pay-per-view of 2023 tier list ranking. I know I'm a little later than most of your other YouTubers, but I'm doing it here today. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, because number one, it's absolutely free. Number two, we're on the road to 600 subscribers. Just 78 away now. Really, how about you boys should subscribe? Also, if you missed my previous toxic tier list rankings I've done in the past, they're on a playlist on my YouTube channel. If you'd like to check that one out, where I do Marvel movies, FNAF characters, Disney stuff, like all sorts of stuff on that playlist. And also don't forget to like the video as well, because let me know that you do like my toxic tier list rankings, and I'll put the YouTube algorithm recommend the video more. And also do feel free to comment your list down below, because I'm sure we have different opinions on this. But before we get into the actual ranking itself as well, guys, we have the categories here. So we have best of the best, which means they were top tier WWE pay-per-views of the year. Then we have great, which means they were great pay-per-views and really good. Toxic goodness means it was a good pay-per-view. It was pretty good. Meh means it was just meh pay-per-view. Nothing really happened. Didn't watch means I wasn't able to watch it because I was probably doing something else that day. And then toxic trash means dumpster fire, the worst pay-per-views of the year. But with that being said, guys, I just want to point this out. You guys see right here, right? There's Bash in Berlin. I didn't make this tier list. I don't want to make that perfectly clear. So we're just going to ignore that on the tier list, okay? All right. First up, and I didn't specifically organize it the way the pay-per-views happened, but yeah. Anyways, first up, we have Elimination Chamber 2023, and honestly, this is probably my second favorite pay-per-view of the year. I'm going to put it in the best of the best tier, because this had so many great matches on the card. It had Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Rhea Ripley and Finn Balor, and then probably one of the best mixed tag team matches ever, but I would still give the edge to Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. The edge. See what I did there? That was unintended. The six-man, honestly, both the Elimination Chamber matches were really good. The women's was really good, even though it was predictable, but the six-man men's one was great too, and all the superstars got moments to shine there. And Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns was phenomenal. But the only bad thing about in this card was probably Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. The only problem I had was the DQ finish. Like, the build-up was it was becoming a good match until it ended with the DQ, with Brock low-blowing Bobby Lashley in the nuts. So, but otherwise, honestly, a great pay-per-view, and for the second premium live event of 2023. So, phenomenal pay-per-view. Then we got NXT Vengeance Day, and I'm sorry, but I was not able to check this one out. Wait, I really wanted to, but I wouldn't say I really wanted to, because this was at the start of the year, and this is when NXT pay-per-views weren't so, how do I say this? They weren't like the black and gold days of NXT, where the pay-per-views were always like a must-see event. But I wasn't able to check out this one, unfortunately. But I did see NXT Deadline, though, of 2022. So, yeah, so I wasn't able to check that one out, unfortunately. Then we got NXT Stand and Deliver, the WrestleMania weekend. I mean, the whole entire week just was busy with wrestling. So I was trying to catch up on all the stuff I possibly could, and I was not, unfortunately, able enough to see the Stand and Deliver pay-per-view, which I know. I'm sorry. I'll try to get it done, watch it this year, but yeah, wasn't able to check out that one either. Then we got NXT Battleground. Okay, so I only watched one match on this card because that was the only match I was really interested in. And that one match, I believe this happened on this pay-per-view, was Dijak versus Ilya Dragunov. And they had one of the best matches of the year. It was great, like really great. And it was a last man standing match, right? Did I already say that? I don't know if I already said that. But I only was curious for that match, so therefore I didn't really watch the other matches. And yeah, it was a phenomenal match. So I can't really judge it just off of that match, so I'll put it in didn't watch because that was the only match I watched. So it goes at the top of the didn't watch category. So yeah, all right. Next up, we have NXT Great American Bash. This is I'm pretty sure the only NXT. Well, besides another one, this was the only NXT pay per view I watched. Besides this, like I said again, another one. But this one was honestly, I had a lot of fun with this one. There is one terrible match on here, which we'll get the good out of the way first. Ilya Dragunov versus Carmelo Hayes was a phenomenal match, even though it ended with Trick Williams helping Carmelo Hayes retain, so kind of bad guy move. The Blair Davenport versus Roxanne Perez in a, I forgot what type of match type it was called, like Extreme Rules, hardcore match or whatever. It was fine, you know. It was a decent enough time, and there was a couple of cool spots here and there, so I liked that match. The triple threat match between Dominic Mysterio, Wesley, and Mustafa Ali was also really great. That shocked me how great that was. And as for the stuff I wasn't as big of a fan of, was the women's championship match between Thea Hale and Tiffany Stratton, a submission match. The match, don't get me wrong, was not like awful, but it was just meh. So, but the only awful match on this whole entire card was Gable Stevenson versus, well, is it Gable Stevenson or Gable Stevenson? I forgot how you pronounce his last name. But anyways, him versus Baron Corbin, and yeah, it was his first match and it was his last because this match sucked. That it was one of the worst matches of the year, and you gotta feel bad for Corbin because he was doing all he could to make him look good, and the crowd did not care for Gable Stevenson at all. They kept on chanting, "You're not Angle," which, yeah, that was pretty shocking because I was not expecting him to get booed at all. And they were cheering Corbin. It wasn't "you both suck" chants. They were actually cheering for Corbin. So that goes into the toxic goodness category. Next up, we have Fastlane, and this pay-per-view was actually pretty shocking because I was expecting it to be a meh pay-per-view because Fastlane always usually is a meh pay-per-view, but it's actually toxic goodness pay-per-view for me. This had quite a few good matches on here. The opener with Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes versus Judgment Day was a solid opener and had a shock title win with Cody and Jey actually beating Judgment Day for their undisputed tag titles. LA Knight and John Cena versus Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa after Cena did the classic shtick where he keeps on getting beaten up and then tags the LA Knight with a hot tag, and then the match actually got going. It was pretty good. The triple threat match between Charlotte, Io, and Asuka was really good. Definitely better than Bianca, Asuka, and Charlotte at SummerSlam, which we'll eventually talk about. And also the main event between Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura was phenomenal for that World Heavyweight Championship. And that 6-man tag between the LWO versus the Street Business was alright. So yeah, Fastlane goes in toxic goodness category. Then we got NXT No Mercy, and NXT To Mercy. NXT No Mercy was, do I want to put it in the great tier? Because I can't remember if there were any bad matches on this card that I can think of. No, honestly, this was the best NXT live event that I watched. The match between Trick Williams and Dirty Dominic Mysterio for the NXT North American Championship was really, really good. Also, let me think here. And it was cool to see Trick Williams win the championship. Because he was insanely hot with the crowd at that time. Tiffany Stratton versus Becky Lynch in the main event in I forgot what match type it was called, but in a street fight. I think it was a street fight. Anyways, that was a phenomenal match, and Becky Lynch made Tiffany Stratton look like a star. Also, Carmella Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov delivered again an even better match than their Great American Bash match, and had the right outcome come through with Ilya Dragunov winning. Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin had a fun little 10-minute slugfest. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all the matches on this card that I can think of, really. And then the Fatal 4-Way tag team match for the tag titles of Tony D'Angelo and Stacks. That was really good, too. So that goes into the best of the best here. Then we got NXT Deadline. I'm sorry, I'm kind of mad that I left out this pay-per-view, but I was unable to check it out because I believe this was the week that I went to Universal. So I wasn't able to check it out, unfortunately, but I've heard good things, so yeah. Then we got Backlash. Probably one of the best crowds, probably one of the best crowds out of this whole entire list and of all time, because the crowd was absolutely hot and made this pay-per-view great. So I don't think it goes quite to best of the best, because the only match on here that I think... Wait, is that the only match I didn't really care for? I'm trying to think of any other matches. No, there were two. So, Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar in the main event should not have main evented. The match was meh, but it should not have main evented. Another match should have main evented, but we'll eventually get to talking about that in a little bit. And Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed versus Austin Theory for the United States Championship was also very meh. But for the other matches that were really, really good or great was the six-man tornado tag match between the Bloodline versus Matt Riddle, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. I thought that was pretty fun. It wasn't amazing by any means, but it was fun. Rhea Ripley versus Queen Zelina was probably one of Rhea Ripley's best title defenses yet, because she hasn't had that memorable title defenses, and the crowd were hot for Queen Zelina. Not Queen Zelina. She's not Queen Zelina Vega anymore. Just Zelina Vega. The crowd were hot for her. Bianca Belair versus Io Sky was a great opener, and the crowd were absolutely hot for Io. And then the match that stole the show was Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest in a San Juan, Puerto Rico street fight, where overbooking is a problem nowadays, but this is the only exception, because this match was absolutely chaos, and I loved it because it had so many members of the LWO appear, a bunch of returns. Carlito returned to one of the loudest pops I've ever heard from a crowd. That was crazy. Savio Vega returned and got a few hits on Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor. And, and had one of the best entrances of all time, in my opinion, with Bad Bunny's entrance. So, with the whole entire crowd singing, Cambaya, Bada, da 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 da, you know. So, it goes into the great tier. Then we have WrestleMania, which... WrestleMania Night 1, unfortunately, I only catched the main event, which, to be fair, that was the only match I was really interested in. And that day, I went to MegaCon, so I wasn't able to check out the full pay-per-view. But the main event stole the show for me. And looking back at the matches I missed, they were somewhat good. Cena versus Austin Theory was pretty but all the other matches were pretty good that I was able to check out. Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul was great. And then the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Showcase match was actually really good. Then Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio was decent. But as for the matches on the second card, which I was able to check out the full second night of WrestleMania, Omos versus Brock Lesnar was fine. They couldn't really do much because Brock couldn't, like, F5 Omos 2 times, I'm pretty sure. That would be quite the feat to do. The women's Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Showcase match was not as good as the men's, and probably, it was a very, I wouldn't say bad, it's meh. It was a very meh/mid match. Gunther versus Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre was amazing. One of the best matches of the year, even though the build-up wasn't as strong, but one of the best matches of the year. Let me think of some other matches. Edge versus Finn Balor, I actually liked in Hell in a Cell, but it slowed down as soon as Finn Balor was bleeding from the ladder shot to the edge, to the head that Edge delivered. And main event between Cody Rhodes, and Asuka versus Bianca was okay, even though Asuka, I think, should have won. And the main event was great between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, but Cody should have won, and also shouldn't have had so many interferences. So WrestleMania, I will put as a whole into into a great tier with Backlash, but Backlash is still better, I think. Then we have Night of Champions. I checked out half of the pay-per-view, but then I went to a friend's house right afterwards. I watched some of the pay-per-view with them, where the matches I was able to check out were... I forgot what kicked off the show. Hold up. Oh, wait. Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. That was good, but I don't think that was the best outing they could have had there for the World Heavyweight Championship, but glad we have another world champion. Asuka versus Bianca had the right outcome this time, and it was a pretty solid match. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch was decent, even though they couldn't really do much yet. And trying to think. What other matches happened on this card? And Gunther versus Mustafa Ali was phenomenal, but they didn't have enough time. If they got more time, that would have been good. And Rhea Ripley versus Natalya was absolutely garbage. But all the other matches I wasn't able to check out, like the triple main event or whatever they called it, where it was Cody versus Brock, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. And I forgot what the third triple main event was, but who knows? I forgot. And Night of Champions, from this one, I feel like I can rank unlike NXT Battleground because I watched like the first half of the show, so I'll put it in the good tier, even though Rhea Ripley versus Natalya was trash. Money in the Bank. And honestly, I felt Money in the Bank was a little disappointing, but it was still a pretty good show, so I'll put it in toxic goodness. Both the ladder matches were really good. The men's Money in the Bank match was great, and it was cool to see Damian Priest win Money in the Bank, even though LA Knight should have won, or Logan Paul. And then the women's Money in the Bank match was even better because Io Sky won. That was really cool. And there was a few points where Zelina looked like she was going to win, and I would have been happy with that too. The Bloodline Civil War was also an amazing highlight. That was great. As for the other stuff, and Matt Riddle versus Gunther was decent. But as for the other matches that happened, like Cody versus Dominic was disappointing. The tag team title match was disappointing, even though it had a shocking shocking babyface turn with Shayna Baszler. And Seth versus Finn undelivered, but definitely had a better outing in another pay-per-view, which we'll talk about soon. And that is the actual pay-per-view we're talking about, SummerSlam, which this is another disappointing pay-per-view. I'll put SummerSlam in the back of Toxic Goodness, because the only match, there were a bunch of disappointments on this card. So, the main event between Jey Uso and Roman Reigns was just basically a 2-on-1 handicap match and tribal combat for the world title, and it was kind of boring during some certain times. And then the logic at the end with Jimmy turning on Jey, that made no sense whatsoever to do it at that specific time. The triple threat match between Bianca versus Charlotte versus Asuka was okay. And then the match between Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. Wolf, one of the worst matches of the year. But there are some good stuff on here. Logan Paul versus Ricochet was a really good match, and Logan Paul proved yet again that he can deliver great matches. Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor, honestly, might be one of my favorite matches of the year. I thought that match was really good. And Gunther versus Drew McIntyre, even though I felt a little disappointed because I feel as if they could have done more, it was still a solid contest between the two of them, and Drew McIntyre and Gunther had a pretty good match. So, yeah, it goes into the toxic goodness category. Then we got Payback, and Payback, bro, if you would have told me this would have been one of the best pay-per-views of the year, I would have told you you're drinking something weird. But Payback was amazing. Like, the only match I can really think of that is not as good as the rest is Raquel versus Rhea. The build-up was pretty decent, but the actual match itself was pretty meh. But there were a bunch of great matches on here. I mean, Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus in a steel cage match is my third favorite match of last year. That was absolutely phenomenal, and it was crazy how many bumps Trish took. The Steel City street fight between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus Judgment Day for the tag titles was also another phenomenal match on that card. Rey Mysterio versus Austin Theory was a pretty decent title defense, but it wasn't anything that memorable. Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura was also pretty good, even though I felt a little bit disappointed by that. But otherwise, this was a great show. I loved Payback pay-per-view. Am I forgetting a match? I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting a match. I don't know if I did or not. Crown Jewel, another one that kind of felt a little disappointing, because I'll put it in toxic goodness category, because why I put it there is because LA Knight versus Roman Reigns, right? The build-up was phenomenal, but the actual match, it was just another bloodline interference every 5 minutes. Not every 5 minutes. But they always pop up at the end, help Roman to retain the title, 1, 2, 3. It's just so annoying and repetitive. And also Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest, even though the crowd was pretty hot for them, was just another match that was... that felt like it could have been on Raw. You know what I'm saying? So, it goes there. And as for the good stuff, Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins was a really great opener. I love that match. The Fatal 5-Way Women's match, even though the crowd didn't really react much, was a fun Fatal 5-Way Women's Championship match, and it felt like it was the only one that felt as if Rhea was at stake and could lose her title. Io versus Bianca had a pretty decent match, even though, again, the crowd didn't really make any noise. And also, Kyrie returned, too. That was pretty cool, but wrong place. And, do we have any other time? Oh, Logan Paul versus Rey Mysterio was also really great. And it was very cool to see Logan Paul win the United States Championship. So that goes into the toxic goodness category. And then also, I forgot to mention Solo Sikoa versus John Cena was pretty good. So, and it was a fine send-off for Roman Reigns. But then we have Survivor Series War Games. And Survivor Series War Games, I'm pretty sure we all know where it's going, right? It's the best of the best pay-per-view. It's the best pay-per-view of the year. The only thing on here that I wasn't loving was Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark. And that was just a fine title defense. But everything else on here, Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee, even though it felt like it could be a SmackDown match, was really good, unlike Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest at Crown Jewel. But that was a really good match. Both War Games matches were amazing. And also, Gunther versus Miz delivered one of Miz's best matches in a while. And also, they delivered a way more better match on Raw, too, that even outdid that one. And CM Punk and Randy Orton and R-Truth, all three of them returned. That's just absolutely crazy and amazing. So, Survivor Series War Games goes there. But with that being said, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this toxic tier list ranking. But before we get to the actual ending of the video, what's up, guys? Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Because number one, it's absolutely free. Number two, on the road to 600 subscribers, just 78 away now. Would really help out your boy if you did subscribe. Also, if you missed my previous toxic tier list rankings I've done in the past, they're in a playlist on my YouTube channel if you'd like to check that out. Also, don't forget to like the video because let me know that you do like my toxic tier list rankings, and I'll put the YouTube algorithm recommend the video more. Don't forget to ring the bell for notifications and notification upload because we do multiple uploads here on the channel every single day. Also, do share the video because also me I guess more people join that toxic thing. And do feel free to comment your lists down below. But with that being said, guys, I'll see y'all next one, everybody. Peace.